even then everyone's looking at you. So like you have to be ready to just play like in any environment. Like that's what gets me so mad, Benny, about like pro tennis and pro golf. Like in my honest opinion, as a coach, those guys are not professionals because whenever they have to do their task, it's like quiet. I'm sorry. No, but concentration is not something that you get at the professional level. Like professional means no matter what. He's playing the intro.
Yes, I am. Hello. Welcome to the Absolute Card Podcast. We're a competitive fighting game community podcast examining history and current events from the lens of the Arizona grassroots scene.
Yes, welcome. This is episode 81. Today we are joined by Mike Prosek, a.k.a. Lumina1re again, back representing the Pacific Northwest right now.
No, always representing Arizona. No, I will never represent the PNW ever. Let it be known, ever. I hate this place. It sucks.
Wow, that's a very.
I don't know why anyone would live here. No, like the weather, the ugly people, the mean people, like the lack of parking, the lack of brain work of like construction of cities. Like it is the most uncivilized, civilized area. It sucks.
Tell us how you really feel, Mike.
Yeah. You have to work around like all the different like lakes and water and stuff compared to the desert out here. Everything's a goddamn grid, right?
Yeah.
If you
I don't know what
get
happened
to
to your mic.
It rains every day. Like just everything's muddy. Like it's just you try to go somewhere and you're like, oh yeah, I'll just go to that place. That place is sweet. Surprise! That place can hold 300 people and it has 2 parking spots. Yeah, like no, I'm not kidding. Like I don't know what they were thinking when they built the city. Like it makes 0 sense.
Sometimes I feel that way about Central Phoenix, which is where I live, where like all the roads are 2-lane, and I'm just like, there's so many people living here now that like there's traffic on service streets every day, and it's just parking lots like. You know, they would drop a Dutch Brothers or a Starbucks there, and then the parking lot wouldn't actually be able to support it. Or like the In-N-Out Burger here, where they have like their own makeshift drive-through line where they have to like rope it off and then put the poor kid outside taking the orders and stuff.
Oh yeah, I feel like certain spots are not just like food stops, right? It is like a community event. Like if you put a Dutch Brothers somewhere, that parking lot better be able to like facilitate like 2 million people. Because if it can't, like, yeah, it's going to get flooded way too quick.
Yeah.
That's probably why there's no Dutch Brothers out here.
Well, part of the reason why we had you on today is because I was traveling to the Dominican Republic recently, and prior to you moving out to the Pacific Northwest, you were actually at the Dominican Republic as well, and you've kind of lived you've lived in a lot of different places over the years. Originally from Arizona, what part of our fighting game community here. Check out the previous episode with Lumina1re on it if you want more information on his background. By the way, I'm just gonna put this out there. We're recording this on a different night than usual, and my wife's game night is going on in the background. So if you hear some Helldivers in the back. That is, she is okay.
Yeah. Yes.
She might be being swarmed by a bunch of bugs or what are those called? The
she's spreading democracy.
Titans.
Automatons.
Yeah. So you might hear some yelling, but rest assured, my wife is okay, or I think she is. Maybe not in the game, but I think she's going to be okay.
I mean, you always have more Helldivers, man. You die, you just respawn. You're fine. She'll be fine.
But going back to my original point, we, I was on my honeymoon with my wife at the Dominican Republic recently, and that got me thinking a lot about being in that country and the fighting game side of it too, where the Dominican Republic has a huge presence in the fighting game community, and then just in general, when we were covering your biography last episode, Mike, we kind of glossed over a lot of the details of your travels over the years here. So again, we kind of have a glowing review of the Pacific Northwest so far. But I was wondering if you could give us some background on your previous trips and previous areas of living and what that was like.
So, yeah. So like you said, I was living in Arizona, enjoying the nice, perfect weather and beautiful people everywhere. They're always friendly. Took a job with the Oakland A's. which is a really great experience for me as a strength coach to, dip my feet into pro baseball and kind of experience how it all works. And one of the nice things about working in pro baseball, particularly the minor leagues, is that you get to live pretty much everywhere that is irrelevant, more or less. Like they only have minor league teams and just the small. It's the same thing with Army bases. They put them in areas where all right, it is what it is, except for Las Vegas. AAA teams are different, but most of the single and AA teams you're going to find in random spots, in the middle of nowhere. So I got to go work for the Dominican team, which was sweet because one, gave me a chance to experience new culture, got to experience coaching, but not only that, I got to live all day, every day speaking Spanish. So the Spanish that I had taken in high school all 4 years, which I hated at the time, became actually incredibly useful. So
some clarification here. You said you worked for the Oakland A's and they had a Dominican team. How does that work? Because if Oakland A's is a continental American team.
So for those who are not familiar with the structure of minor league baseball, baseball is different from the NFL and the NBA, right? In that the NFL, there is no minor. Well, you kind of have the XFL merger now that is kind of essentially a minor leagues for football, but they don't have an official minor leagues. So
XFL?
Yes.
Yeah.
They merged with what was the?
That's the one owned by The Rock.
Yeah.
Wait, The Rock owns football?
Yeah, The Rock owns the XFL.
The Rock owns
or whatever.
Everything Disney doesn't own, The Rock owns, basically. So
wow. I guess I've been living under a rock.
He's the final boss, bro.
Okay. Fair.
Yeah, no, The Rock's killing it right now. Wrestling is so much better now that he's back in it. I love it. But anyway, so in baseball, right? The NBA has the G League, which is just basically that every team has one minor league team that's affiliated with it. In baseball, you have 7. So every team has, you've got, let's say you get drafted, right, in high school or college, you're going to go play in rookie ball, which is just a 3-month league in either Arizona or Florida, depending on where your spring training is located.
Okay.
So you've got rookie ball. And then you've got low A, which is going to be somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Montana or something like that. And then you've got high A, which is probably usually going to be in the California League. For the A's, I believe their team was in Stockton, California. So after high A, you have double A, then you have triple A, then you have the majors. And below all of that, before you even get to rookie ball, is the Dominican League. So the Dominican League.
The Dominican has their own league then.
It's their own league. Every single team has at least 1 or 2 teams in that league. So all baseball teams are represented, but the whole purpose of that league is to be drafted officially. You have to and be able to play in rookie ball, you have to be 18. So for the Dominican leagues, they essentially sign these guys when they're 16, and it's a 2-year developmental league to see if by the time they turn 18, if they're good enough to go send to the States. And they'll sign these guys for $10,000. Yeah. Super cheap. Granted, I did work for Oakland, who is the cheapest team in the history of teams. All teams, not just baseball, literally all teams ever conceived. So they'd sign these guys for $10,000 and be cool, we're going to lock you in this complex and you do nothing but eat, sleep, and drink baseball. And if you're good enough, then you'll get a shot to go to the States.
Yeah, I don't know the details of soccer teams, but soccer teams start kind of young too when it comes to drafting players or bringing them, acquiring them for your minor league or your smaller teams. Because there's a lot of stuff like that in soccer too, where they'll see the potential in some kid and they'll be all right, we're going to bring him under our wing, and then we're going to develop him and let him play, wherever for our team and represent us. And then if he's good enough, then he moves up those levels and eventually can end up on the club team or whatever.
I believe tennis has something similar too, even though tennis is more of an individual sport.
I know that for esports, there were a lot of famous Dota houses here in Arizona, in Phoenix in particular, where a rich dude would just rent out a house and then house a bunch of gamers in there and they would practice MOBAs. And I think the big thing was because real estate taxes were really cheap here. So you could just have gamer houses or pro league houses here. But like,
Yep.
I'm just gonna put this out there because I'm not a sports guy and I'm probably gonna piss some people off. But like, this sounds exploitative as fuck, dude. Like, you're basically farming children. Right?
Well, I mean, if you can look at it that way too, but I mean, it's like you have to think like for some of these kids, like getting to the pros, that's their dream, right? Like that's what you want to do. Like if you love the game,
I wouldn't say some.
Like
I would say literally every single one.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you talk to them, every single one is convinced, like full-heartedly, that they are going to the league. They don't even understand. Like once they get off the island, it's like, no, that's just like the start. Like you got to go all the way through the system. But
wow.
Yeah, to your point, though.
I see your point, though, John. Yeah.
Yeah, because like to your point, John, like it definitely is on the side of the baseball team, but to the side of the individual, even though it's a measly sum of $10,000, they have never even sniffed like close to that money. Like most of these dudes that were there had never even owned shoes before. So like, like to them, they're getting one. I mean, they get like, some money so they can help out their family because they're going to take that 10. I mean, 10 is the lowest. Like I say 10 grand, but guys can be anywhere from like 10 grand to like 300 grand for that like 2-year period.
Okay.
But so to them, like they're getting a sizable amount of money that they can use to immediately help their family, which is great. And they get a chance to then potentially pursue their dream. Unfortunately, like 90% of them will not even leave the island, but at least they get a shot. Because like, if you think of it on the flip side, like there's not 16-year-olds in the United States that are at the same skill level that are going to get that shot. Right. Like for example, like the number one player in Arizona right now for high school, he plays at Saguaro High School. He's a pitcher. I actually knew his dad. He used to do CrossFit with his dad.
Oh, wow.
He's 18 and he's got a full ride offer to LSU, but he does he legally, no one can give him a shot. He's about to turn 18. No one can give him a shot to like what these kids are getting basically. Cause they'll go in and, there's like, onesies and twosies where you see him and you're like, yeah, that guy's going to at least get to like AA. Like he's really good. Right. But the majority of them they have like one skill where it's like, I can't run, walk, or like do anything coordinated. But if you put this baseball in my hand, I can throw it 100 miles an hour. And like, they do one thing like just insanely good. So like in baseball, they say a player will have tools, right? And there's like 5 tools if you're a perfect player: hit for contact, hit for power, speed, arm strength, and defense. So one of these kids will have like one of those tools be like 5-star, like really good. And then it's up to the coaching staff to be able to develop the rest of those tools to be serviceable so that they can get to the league, basically.
Okay. So,
that's a generalization, but that's kind of like the meat and potatoes of it.
So you have a class of like however many 16-year-olds kind of all just in like really rigorous training camps for 2 years before they become legally able to come over to play in the US if they're spotted or scouted as such.
Yeah, because once they're on the team, like Oakland already knows, like they already know who their best guys are in that system, like who they're planning to put where, like all this stuff, right? I would say a lot of teams, because now like baseball is very much like Latino dominant in terms of like the players that actually play now. So like those, the Latinos dominate baseball right now. And like for them, like I would say other teams, like I can't really speak for the other teams, but like for Oakland, they hadn't had one player go through their system from the Dominican and make it all the way up to the majors since Miguel Tejada, which was 30 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like a long time ago.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of people vying to kind of break that streak, I guess, or get there. And are they competing against each other, or like how are the people that are calling these shots? Are they actually at the DR, or are they? Is it kind of like a report back to the higher ups in America or something?
Yeah, I mean, you always have that backwards feedback, right? So like coaches that are there coaching the players are pushing up to their superiors, like, yo, I got this guy, he's awesome, come watch him, whatever, right?
Sure.
And then those superiors, the rovers, like they will come down and like watch, like they'll show up, they'll come down for like a week, watch whatever players they're trying to watch to see like if they've hit like, X, Y, and Z in their development. And yeah, then they'll go back. So yeah, no, they're tracking, and I think overall it is good because, like I said, there's a lot of really good Latin players right now that came out of those academies, basically.
Okay.
They just haven't been from Oakland.
and so like, you're giving me the impression that all the kids want to be there, and so
yes,
and you mentioned Absolutely. That they had like several of them hadn't been able to afford shoes before and whatnot. So like, was that like kind of your experience in living in the DR, that it was a less affluent country?
Yes. So like if you, not so much like in Santo Domingo, like in the capital, I mean, you'll see it like in the outskirts, right? But like once you go into the suburbs, like you will see people, electricians working on power cables with their bare hands, and they're like, or they're laying down concrete, like fresh concrete in flip-flops. Like they all wear flip-flops because most people can't afford shoes. So you get flip-flops. But then on top of that too, right. And then if you have shoes, then you also have to know how to tie shoes. So, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So like when I would get like my first year there, when I got new players, like we had a rule, like you can't wear your cleats in the gym, right? Because just the surface of it will get torn up. You don't want cleats that are designed for ground to be tearing up indoor surfaces. So I get like 10 guys that come in wearing cleats, and they're like, yeah, coach, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to work hard. And I'm like, no, you got to switch your shoes. They didn't know. Like they had someone tie their shoes for them. They're like, I can't take these off right now because I don't know how to retie them. So basically like they're on until I'm like done for the day. And I was like, okay, bunny ears or loop, swoop, and pull, because you're going to learn today. Like, and so I had to teach guys, like, I literally looked up how John Wooden, the famous legendary basketball coach that you are completely not understanding at all right now, but look him up, do yourself a service. He's a great.
Benny gets it. Benny gets him, right? Okay.
I looked up how John Wooden taught his players how to put on their socks the right way so they wouldn't get blisters, and then, just basic like how to tie your shoes, because they couldn't, they got to be able to do that just to be able to like adhere to like the team's rules and stuff, right?
And you had to do that in Spanish too, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Wow. How do you say bunny ears in Spanish?
Oídos de conejo.
That's sick. Okay.
Yep. Oh, so like they would come to me and they'd be like, what do I do this? And I'd be like, conejo. And they'd be like, oh yeah, right. Bunny. Got it. Like bunny ears.
That's really cool.
It was actually, it was really good also because it allowed me to learn a lot of like I can speak Spanish fine with like people that speak Spanish. I'm not fluent. There's a lot of words that I don't know, but it allowed me to kind of learn some of those little words that like you're not going to use on a daily basis that are more like specific in like advanced conversation.
Okay. And that's like a background that you had just growing up in Arizona too. Is it like part of our curriculum and the public high schools here and whatnot were Spanish? Like you had to take Spanish classes. I had to take 4 years as well.
Yeah, I think they might have toned that down a little, but yeah, when I was in high school, I had to take 4 years of Spanish.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense too because you got a lot of Spanish speakers in Arizona, and just in general, Spanish is the second most spoken language in the United States. So if you can speak Spanish and be like, at least effective with it, like it's good. It comes in handy.
Yeah, dude. In elementary school, like they used to. Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
I was gonna say, coincidentally, some of the most beautiful women on earth only speak Spanish, so it really helps if you talk to them in their own language. Like,
that's a different direction that I was going with. In elementary school, they used to make us watch Spanish videos like twice a week or so, and so we learned basic Spanish in elementary school, and then in middle school there was a Spanish elective, and then in high school it was mandatory to take a foreign language, and most people took Spanish. So that's a heads up for you, Benny. I think since you didn't grow up here, but did you? Out of curiosity, Benny, did you have any like foreign language requirements in your public schools?
We just had 2 years. Yeah, I took Spanish as well.
Oh, okay. Those classes weren't.
Yeah. Those classes weren't particularly great, but that's what I took as well.
not as much Spanish out in Anchorage.
I mean, there's enough. I mean, it's common enough. It's just like, honestly, I think I wish I would have taken German.
That's what my wife took. But yeah, like I that kind of jives with some of my. Okay, so I want to be very transparent here as far as like my Dominican Republic experience was very much it was non-fighting game related. That was a big one, is that I was not going to play fighting games even though I was in the DR, and DR is heavily associated with Street Fighter thanks to Mena and Kaba and whatnot. But I was at an all-inclusive. Yeah, they're great players. They're great people. But my experience with the Dominican Republic was get to the airport, drive through the airport. We went to Punta Cana and drive through the airport with all the other tourists out of the airport right into like a walled off all-inclusive resort. And so my experience at the DR was very much like curated for like the American tourist. But getting to, travel to and from the hotel, I got a chance to see a little bit about like what people's lives were like at least on the sides of roads and whatnot. Like there were people selling fruit. There were people doing a lot of construction, even like how they drove on the roads. Like you had like motorcyclists, but then like you had like a lot of people rode motorcycles or like scooters or whatever. And then they would just like trucks.
It's a taxi service.
Oh, it's a taxi service? No shit. There were a lot of people riding on the same, like two people riding on a lot. Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So yeah, if you can't, just because like you said, the way that their like rules of the road works, it's pretty much like a free for all. So if you need to get somewhere quick, you're a lot of times better off just taking the moto, unless you get in a car accident and die. Like you're going to get there faster.
That's what it felt like. It felt like the bigger cars were constantly bullying the motorcyclists, being like, get the hell out of the way. And they would like ride right up on their asses, and the motorcycle would always have to pull over and get on the side of the road or something. And then like a lot of construction, like you were talking about cement blocks or people pouring cement earlier, and and again, I was in a tourist area, and so I think that there was a lot of like construction based around tourism there. And
you were in Punta Cana, was that right?
Yeah, Punta Cana.
Yeah, that is literally like the tourist spot.
Yeah, there's hella resorts everywhere, and like we would drove past a couple of resorts where like the staff was lining up for the morning or something, or like a change in shift. I think it was because it was like a little bit after lunch. So it wasn't the morning; it was after lunch. That's when we got in, and it would just be lines of people dressed in white and like dressed in like hospitality outfits, essentially, whether they were chefs or maids or So again, I got a very curated view of what the Dominican Republic was like. I didn't actually go out in the city or anything like that. But just seeing that glimpse going from the airport to the hotel, it brought on all these different questions I had about like, what is it actually like to live there? Which I now pose to you, Mike. What was it actually like to live there?
So, I mean, as you kind of felt, right, it's pretty much every single day there is basically like in the range of like 90 to 95 degrees and like 90 to 100% humidity, because right on the
very humid.
So you might get a little bit of deviation from there, but yeah, like it's very humid. So you get used to being sweaty. But for me, like, it was kind of like similar for you, how you had like a curated experience. Like most of my week, I would be stuck inside of a gated baseball facility. And like pretty much during the week, we didn't leave unless we like had to go get food or something, but we had our meals provided to us. Like they did our laundry. We had our own rooms, Yeah. So, I mean, like literally my overhead was like absolute zero. Like I didn't have to pay for anything other than like whatever subscriptions that I had going. So that was nice. But then on the weekends, we would get to go out. Like they had a taxi service for us, and we would basically like call a guy, like tell him where we wanted to go, and they just like drive us wherever we wanted to go on the island. And like, if we did a trip, like if we went to Punta Cana or somewhere far, like Santiago, which is on the most north part of the island, then yeah, we would tip them extra, just because, that's their weekend too. So,
yeah, sure.
But yeah, so I got to go out and experience like a lot of like the I mean, the cities, like the small towns, like the beaches. Oh my gosh, their beaches are like in my opinion, out of all the beaches that I saw, the one at Punta Cana was the worst.
Oh,
Like, just to give you
okay.
Oh, really?
context. Yeah, like
Like,
by far the worst. Like, because that's a touristy area. Like, you can't have as many like people out there. Whereas, like, if you go to like La Romana or Bahia de los Aguiles, which is out literally in the middle of nowhere, but it looks like something that you would see on like Discovery Channel, like just ridiculous.
okay.
Then
Very
yeah,
blue.
they have a lot of very blue. Yeah, like all their water you can just see straight down. Like you can see all the way through, and it's like bath water basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely awesome there. I was gonna ask, when you were at the airport and you were getting off the plane and like like leaving and all that, like did you let the guy come up and ask to like take your bag for you?
Yeah, that guy. Well,
Did you let him?
so no, we didn't. No, we didn't. No, because we were looking
Okay,
for our
good. Yeah,
travel agent. Yeah, our travel agency instead.
yeah.
We were working directly with
Because
Costco
yeah,
for that one.
they'll hustle, right? So like if you let that
Yeah.
guy take your bag, like he's gonna ask you for a tip. So like they have that like everywhere. If they're like, oh, you're an American, like you don't know how anything works, nor do you speak Spanish. I'm going to try to get as much money out of you as I can.
Wait. Well, that
Which is
actually
fair.
happened on the way back though, as we got out of the ride, and then there were people waiting to take our bags and walk us to the airport
Yep.
security. So we didn't
Yep.
have to pay those guys? I thought they were part of the travel agents. Oh shit.
No, bro. No. They hustled you. Yeah, that's why I asked. Because the first time when I got there, like I was supposed to meet like my boss, right, who's American, speaks English, like a little bit of Spanish,
God damn
and
it.
like he sees me like when I met him, like I'm walking over with a guy like carrying my bag, and I see him just go, "Fuck." Like you got hustled, bro. Like, and he's just like, here's $5, go away. He doesn't need you to carry his bag. And he was like, literally everything you will do yourself. Like, do not let anyone do anything for you, because if you do, then like you have to pay them. Like they're dirt poor. You got to pay them.
It's funny you mentioned like even like the free for all driving and stuff, because there's a lot of parallels like with the Philippines and stuff. Like I haven't been there in 24 years, but like I remember like similar things, right? Like people say like if you can drive in the Philippines you can drive anywhere, because like there's really like
Yeah.
there's no lane lines or
No
anything. It's
rules.
literally
Yeah.
just like there's just people fucking driving. There's rickshaws, there's motorcycles and scooters everywhere. There's no crosswalk. It's just like I want to cross, I'm going to cross right now, and all these people are just going to dodge me, right?
Yep.
It's literally a free for all. And then like Mike said, the hustlers and stuff like that, like man, they can sniff an American from a mile away. A lot of times it's just like your physical size. Like they can tell that you eat well, right? And it's just like they can sniff you from like a mile away.
I was the only Asian guy there for miles, I bet. And I was
Oh,
married to a white
Well,
woman, like a really tall white woman. So it's like,
yeah,
we stuck out a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you definitely stuck out for sure. But like there is actually, because like in the capital they have like their own Chinatown. That's actually pretty cool. Like they have their own like pretty strong Asian community. I couldn't tell you exactly like what ethnicities. I want to say mostly like Japanese, but I could be wrong on that.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Mena would be a better. He would know better than I would. But they're to that point, like their Chinese food is bomb. It's so good. Like they have good food over there.
Okay. Well,
but other weird thing, since we're speaking on food,
yeah,
they don't like spicy food at all. Like Venezuelans don't like spicy food. Like Colombians don't like spicy food. At least from my experience, anyway. Dominicans hate it. Like I'd be like, oh, sweet, like jalapeno. And they're like, no, muy fuego, like picante, hot. And I'm like, bro, this is like a warm up. Are you kidding me? Like this is no, I'll eat this.
Yeah,
whole
for
thing.
Arizona.
Are you 5? Like grow up. No, like this isn't even like close to like getting near like a ghost pepper. Like get out of here. And they'd be like, oh.
Yeah.
No,
it looks like I was looking it up since she mentioned the ethnicity, and it says there's approximately 60,000 people of Chinese origin living in the Dominican Republic.
Wow.
And that seems to be the biggest. Yeah, that seems to be the biggest one, I think. because like Japan, it was like less than 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean
Seems to
that
be
would make
Chinese.
sense if they have their own Chinatown and it wasn't like Chinese. I guess that wouldn't. Yeah. So I mean that yeah, there you go. Makes sense.
Oh, you never know.
I guess that so like the resort that we were on, like the food was kind of mid, to be honest.
Yeah.
And they had Asian nights every now and then at some of the restaurants, and the Asian food was kind of whatever. But that puts it a little bit more into context of like why they even had Asian food to begin with. I was like, me and Jess were like, do we want Asian food at the Dominican Republic? Like, we came for like, you know,
plantains and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm allergic to fucking bananas, dude.
Oh,
anyway.
Oh, dude, that's rough. Yeah, because tostones are amazing.
Said. Yeah.
Tostones are so good. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Plantains are really good out there. Their avocados, I don't know if you got to see them, but their avocados are no joke. They're like this big.
I'm allergic to avocados.
Best avos.
Yeah. Every time I would, because they'd ask me, like, do you have any allergies? And I was like, yeah, I'm allergic to avocados. And they'd be like, oh, I feel so sorry for you.
Yeah.
And I was like,
their avocados are so good.
Benny hates avocados, for the record. We've got,
I know.
He's team no guac, right?
He's team no guac. It's okay to be wrong, you know? It's okay. It's fine. I'm wrong about quite many things in the world, but avocado is not one of them.
But in regards to the resort food being mid, though, like I was like, none of this food is spicy, and I thought it was just because, like, all the rich folks that come and stay at these resorts, they want to play it safe. But now I'm thinking it's like a cultural thing instead, where they just don't have a bunch of spicy foods there.
They don't, yeah. Because I think too, like they already know that like the people that are going to be staying in Punta Cana are going to be spending like a pretty good amount of money, right? Like they're, for the most part, like you can't really leave. Like you kind of can, but you're not going to. So like they got you, right? Like they're going to give you mid food and they're going to charge you like a good amount for it. Like to find the best food, you have to get out like into the capital and into like the suburbs.
Well, okay. Well,
yeah, so I highly recommend you should go visit Mena sometime, and he will show you everything, and you will be like, "Oh yeah, this is the experience I want." I guarantee you, right now, if you hit him up, he would be like, "Yeah, bro, how long you want to stay with me?" Like, guaranteed. He's the nicest guy. He's so cool. But he did that for me. He took me to like all the best food spots. He's like, "You want to go here? You want to go here? You want to go here?" And then literally, all my knowledge of the best food spots were from him.
Yeah.
I maybe we should talk a little bit about fighting games on this fighting game community podcast, but
for those of you watching, Lumina1re is like the coolest dude of all time. Like regardless of how you feel of his play style, one, he'll wreck you because he is really that good. Two, he's super nice, like the nicest guy.
Yeah. From my brief interactions with him, he was also a really super cool, super chill dude. He's all like, even when I was talking with him in New York, like he was looking after his homies in DR, being like, "Hey, can you reach out to this Chun-Li player because he could use some tips and trade tech and stuff." I still talk to that guy on Twitter every day. His name is Basilios. Nice. But yeah, so you actually got a chance to interact with the Dominican Republic FGC as well, then, right? So what was your experience like there?
So that was pretty cool because I know the little spot, I don't remember the name for it, but like Mena's his spot where he basically like created that for his scene, right? If you're thinking of like the gaming zone, right? Like if you were to take just like the walkway and like extend it to the wall and then put a bathroom in the back, that was basically the size of the spot. So like very small, but he had probably about like 10 monitors hooked up in there. And then they had like, one in the back for like the special like challenge, event or whatever. So I thought that was cool. But like, very humbling because, like you go in there and there's like 4-year-olds with like no shoes. There's like 8-year-olds, there's grown men, like super wide spectrum. And then you sit down and you're like, oh, sweet. Like this 8-year-old's about to, oh my God, he perfected me. Like, what the hell? Like little 8-year-old with pad. Like, I'm the nastiest Blanca player you've ever seen. And I know all the shenanigans. You're like, oh, dude, no. Like it's impressive. Like, so like that guy that you're teaching, like he is going to take whatever you teach him, and he is literally going to just like use that to grow like a lot of Chun-Li players that you'll probably never hear about, but will be like probably pretty good because of whatever you were able to share with him.
Wow. Okay.
Because they do that. Like when they started, their scene was so small, right? It was like it was Mena, like Kaba, Crossover, who's also really good, but he just doesn't get to travel. And they were like, okay, like we only play like, you know, like Crossover plays Shoto's, Mena played who he played, and then like, you know, Kaba played Guile. So they were like, we don't get enough experience against all the cast. So they all learned to play every character basically. And then they would just run the matchups. And then at that point, they just had to adjust the play styles because they had like, you know, the ability to watch like the Japanese and European players and like see how you would like traditionally play matchups and things like that, right? Yeah. Just by playing like the odds and, you know, playing safe and whatnot. So they had that, but then they had their own play style, which is ham. Like,
yes,
they play pretty ham, but not like, it's not bad ham. Like, you know, like what it would be the type of thing where like, if I could stop them from doing the ham, then they'd be like, okay, cool. Now I'll footsie you and you made a mistake, more ham, like back in with the ham. Like they were good. Like I was actually very impressed with like anytime I've ever played like Middle Eastern guys, you know, like from Saudi Arabia or like Kuwait, like they all play kind of like super safe, like super like by the book. Like they won't take risks. Like no matter how much you bait them, they won't take the risk unless they really think that like, you know, you're gonna fall for whatever. Like they play super safe. The Dominican guys had the ability to kind of do that, but then also have like absolute ham to where they kind of had that like California approach of like, wait, I don't have to do any of this if I can just beat you down. Like if you can't stop me from beating you down, then
that's a good way. A California approach is actually a really good way to describe it. They all play like that too.
Yeah, I remember on the previous episode when we talked to you. Yeah, you touched on that in terms of them learning the matchup. Like, you know, they didn't play certain characters, and then all of a sudden it was just like, you know, we need to learn this too. And like, I remember you mentioning everybody playing everybody, you know, to gain that knowledge.
Yeah, because like when I went over there, like I hadn't been playing, you know, that was after we had done like, you know, the Street Fighter V Ranbats and all the oh man, what were those called?
Bar fights,
not
boot
the
camps.
bar fights, boot camps. Yeah, like you know, so that was after I had been like super invested in the game. So I'd play like Nikali, but I was trying to like play Zeku, and I remember like 4 people in there would be like, "Oh yeah, like oh yeah, you play Guy, right?" And then they like show me how to play Zeku, and they're just like infinitely better than me, and I'm like, dang, like, yeah, you guys really all know how to play like pretty much most of cast, like at least like a respectable level.
How big is this community that you mentioned that the building was small, but like were there a lot of different people there, or like is it bigger or smaller than the Arizona scene?
You know, I want to say without like again, like Mena would be able to better answer that because I'm sure there's a lot of like the Dominican FGC that I didn't get to see in the other cities. But like for example, like DRA, like he was there, right? And like DRA the whole time would be like coaching people like while they were playing, like, no, you can't press that. Like, nope, like you see this, like you block this, you can't press buttons there. Or like if you see this, like you block, like, you know, just teaching them like basic things of the matchup, like, and just constantly doing it, like how Abe would do, like, you know, if we were in battles and he'd be like, yo, like DP that, like you can DP that. Why did you not DP that? DP that. Like, you know, just constantly reinforcing like the thing that you need to do. So they know the fundamentals of the games pretty well. And yeah, I don't know how big their scene was, but when I would see the Santo Domingo guys, I would say it's probably like, you know, at least like probably like 30 guys.
Wow. Okay. That's a decent size, bigger than ours in a lot of ways.
Well, I mean, if you consider like all the people here. Right. Like, I mean, if you counted like all the people that if you were to ask them, like, hey, are you part of this scene? They would be like, yes. Right. You know, even if they never like showed up that often, like I would say including all those guys, probably like 30, 40, but like the same consistent ones that I'd always see that were like their, you know, like their top players, probably like 10 to 15, probably somewhere around there.
I think I was gonna say, I think it was on the last episode too. You were talking about kind of like the pride that the people have, like I think that was John that was talking about that in terms of like I don't know if you
Yeah.
said you were like on a Uber or something in New York, and you mentioned Mena and like the guy like knew who it was.
Yeah.
Was
So
that
they
you?
have a very big pride, like for their country. Cause like I was saying, like baseball is literally like their number one sport, like by far. Like they love baseball.
Yeah,
Even Mena was like, yeah, I played baseball growing up. Like everyone plays baseball growing up.
yeah.
Like it's like they're very, very proud of their people. And I mean, now if you look at like the MLB, John, I know that's gonna go over your head, but like, you know, if you look at like the top 20 players in the league, probably like 8 of them at least are Dominican. Like, you know,
Oh, I didn't know that.
like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, no, the Dominican, like they pump out really good baseball players, like very, very, very good baseball players. Like Alex Rodriguez was Dominican, like Big Papi, David Ortiz, he was Dominican. Albert Pujols, Dominican. Holly Ramirez, Dominican. Like Pedro Martinez, Dominican. Like there's a lot of really good players that are Dominican. I think right now the best player in the league, like Acuna, I don't know if he's Dominican or Venezuelan. I'm not sure, but I could be wrong. But yeah, like they're very proud of their people, and their history is kind of neat. Like I definitely, when I was down there, my cousin showed up for work for like 6 days, and he was like, "Yo, do you want to go do like the downtown like tour of like the whole like colonial area and like how everything happened and whatnot?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, like let's do it." Like it was pretty sweet. Like they have a statue of Christopher Columbus that's toppled over, and like they start the tour by being like, "So everyone, this is Christopher Columbus. Fuck that guy." And they're all like, "Yeah, fuck that guy." Like,
That's awesome.
He literally like said like he was the devil. And I'm like, so America, tell me.
You know what's funny is I live down the street from a Christopher Columbus statue, dude. There's an Italian American community center down the street from me, and there's a giant statue of Christopher fucking Columbus. I remember walking past it on Columbus Day, being like, "God damn it!" Oh man. I would be remiss not to mention that we were talking about national pride. I would be remiss to not mention some of the friends that I made in New York as well, who are Dominican, but they're just residents of New York. Like Kiko Master RD is probably like my main connection to the DR, in that he and I kind of traded a lot of tech for Chun-Li in Street Fighter 6, and he's been playing, fighting games since like I think CVS 2, he told me, was one of his first games. Like, so he's an older dude. He's a tech monster. You'll see, like, he's been on, you could find YouTube videos of him playing pretty much every modern fighting game for sure. And then he in turn introduced me to a bunch of different Dominican guys in New York as well. One of them was half Dominican, who was just a New York native, and so I got to meet him and run sets with his DJ. There's one guy that I met who played JP, and he didn't speak any English whatsoever. This was at Defend the North when we were playing casuals, but it was like a kumite, basically. A Kiko Master set up this, all of his Dominican friends to just play matches with me. And because they knew I was flying out from Arizona, and there was a chance to play people from, I guess, the West Coast, technically, even though we're not really West Coast. And I remember this JP player, he didn't speak any English. Like, he did a really sick combo at the time, because this is in July when the game had come out, and we were like, oh, like, there's all this stuff that we hadn't seen before. And he did this really sick combo with with JP portals and comboed after it into level 3, and I was like, that was sick. And again, we didn't speak the same language at all, but we both looked at each other and we're like nodding, and it kind of gave me this like understanding that fighting games kind of transcend language in a lot of ways, because when someone does something really sick, then you'll notice it no matter what language you speak. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, it's true. Yeah, that I always thought that was neat, because like the few times at like Evo or like SCR where I got to play like really good like out of country players like WoW and like Infiltration, like I can't talk to them, and like you can just feel it. It's like, wow, we're having a conversation right now. Like, this is sweet, because I definitely don't know how to speak your language. Like, no, you're right. Like it's definitely pretty cool. Like that is neat.
And then I got to play against Menard in top 8, and that was my first time ever speaking to him, and he spoke great English. And I don't know about you guys, and I'm gonna talk some shit right now, but like anytime I've talked with top American players, a lot of them sometimes they're just too good to talk to you. And Mena was the complete opposite. He treated me like just like a just very cordial, very nice, and he smiled when we shook hands before the match even. And I mentioned to him that I thought that he was really good, like because he had won Capcom Cup for Street Fighter V the previous year, and the way he handled himself compared to some American players have handled themselves in the past, like he handled it with a lot of grace, and I think it's because he recognizes that like he comes from the DR and wants to be a good example for the people that are living there. That pride again that we're talking about, and it almost felt a little bit like kind of like that sports mentality where it's like if you're a pro player, you have people looking up to you, and so therefore you have to hold yourself differently and you have a greater responsibility. And he struck me as somebody that was willing to shoulder that responsibility rather than shirk it. And
I mean, it's one of those things too. Like he's coming from humble beginnings, kind of thing, right? And like you talk about like the American players, and like I don't know if that's just like the bravado or the machismo and stuff like that, where you have to kind of gauge whether somebody's at your level first before you kind of give them that respect.
Yeah.
Versus just just respecting them from the beginning and just like good games, because like there's definitely been bad interactions I've had with some top players just in terms of like they just don't feel like you're at their level, or they have there's a certain kind of like disrespect they feel until they really kind of determine whether or not you're worthy of their time, and if and you can beat them.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, we definitely. Yeah, we suck like that. Like straight up, we are like we're assholes like that, man. Like because when I would talk to the players, like when I was working in the Dominican, right? Like they all liked me a lot because they all said they're like, you're not an asshole, but you're American. Like you're really actually nice.
Jesus Christ.
Tell that, like we can tell that you actually care about like you're here to help us, right? And like because like don't get me wrong, like I had some legendary epic like get in your ass moments like with those guys, but I was able to do that because they knew that I cared so much. Whereas when you deal with pro athletes, like you can't come at them from the super alpha male level of like you're fucking up and it needs to be fixed now unless you've earned that, because you have to be on that their level of professionalism basically.
Yeah. See, like I know in our group chat, like recently, John, you had brought up playing iPeru, and like I think I touched on this briefly before, but at my first Evo in 2011, like pretty much every Evo, like my Alaska friends and stuff, they like to set up a 5v5, right? And we had a 5v5 against Utah, and so it was Gustavo and iPeru and I don't know 3 random guys, and we didn't have our 2 best players, and they were kind of like questioning whether are you guys sure you want to go through with this kind of thing, and we're like, yeah, sure, we're gonna play. And my friend that played Fei Long at the time, Cho, he hit iPeru with a wake up ultra to like win his match in the 5v5. And iPeru, like he my friend put his hand out, and iPeru looked at him and was just like, I don't respect that, right? And we're just like, okay, whatever, dude. Like like and this is at the kind of like the height of his El Fuerte and all this crap, right?
Sure.
And that was kind of that being my first Evo, to get the kind of that impression from a player that was making a name for himself. That really stuck with me and like a lot of my friends, because like I remember watching, I don't know if it was SBO or it was some like Japanese tournament where he was playing Daigo, and he did Wake Up Ultra, and we it's all an inside joke to us because we're laughing and we're like, oh, we don't respect that. And it's just like, dude, like here you are, getting mad because you lost to that, but here you are in the same situation against, arguably the best player in the world at that time, and you're doing the same shit. And it's just like, you're no better than us, dude.
It's a reminder that these guys are human, right? That like they, even though you'll watch them on stream from afar and be like, oh, these are the best of the best players, and then in reality they just end up they can be assholes, they can be idiots, they can be whatever, and they're still human beings. It's a little bit of that never meet your heroes thing.
No, it's true, because like I want to comment on this piece, because I have like two little tidbits there to comment on for that. One, because like it makes me think, right? Because I Peru is American. I know we just kind of touched on this a little bit, but like I've been in that situation before too, where I've lost tournament matches because I pressed buttons when that person woke up, right? Like if you're in that type of situation, you're playing against like a Kuwait or like a Japanese player, they're sitting there like, I win, because literally the only thing that you can do to win right now is wake up ultra. So that's the one thing I'll take off the table and I win, right? And then it happens. And they're like, oh yeah, of course. But Americans, no, we're like, I will decimate my opponent while he's down. I will press buttons and I lose, right? So I had a match. I had like, I think it was a local Ranbats. It was some tournament. It was a big tournament back in Arizona. I had a really good set with Sean. Like it was super hype match. Like
Boca Latte.
We got to the point where like he whiff punished me so often, and I DP'd him out of the air off of everything. None of us moved for like 45 seconds. Like we were just like we didn't want to put anything out there, because we knew like next hit is death. And I got in a situation where I knocked him down, and like it was the exact same thing. The only thing that he could have done right there to win, outside of getting some shenanigans and like creating a situation for himself, would have been to wake up DP. Like that's all he could have done. And like I sat there and I was like, do not press buttons right here. Like that is the only thing that he can do. And then I pressed the button and he EXDP'd and I lost. And then he turned to me and he's like, bro, you would be like the best Akali in the world if you just didn't do dumb shit like that. And I was like, I know, man. Like, I know. Like, you're right. Like he was just sitting there looking at me like, what are you doing, dude? Like, and I'm like, no, like I wasn't pissed at him at all. I was like, I don't even deserve to play this game. Like I suck. I get it. Like, why did I do that? Because I knew immediately. It was like, why did I touch the stove? Like, duh. Like,
Yeah.
But
yeah, totally.
I think our mindset has a lot to do with that. Like every time I would play Yusuf, after like not playing against like that type of player for a while, I'd be like, oh God, right. Yeah. I forgot. I'm not allowed to do anything. Like I just have to chill. Like no fun stuff. Like I just have to chill. And then like if I beat him, it's going to take me like 99 seconds to beat him. And then that's how it would be. Yeah. And like you have to have that mental willingness to like have clarity of the situation and know like who you're playing against and what type of player it is and basically what the rules are, right? It's like the same way when I play you. Like I play either of you in Street Fighter 6. It's like, okay, majority of the time I'm going to be blocking unless I just know that I can't win, then I have to try shenanigans. But outside of doing it for that, like, yeah, it's like, oh, right. I play against someone that's not going to let me just like do dumb shit. Like I have to be willing to like give up turns if I'm unsure of what's going to happen and just be like, well, I'll take the worst case scenario off the table. Like
it's a lot like it's that Dominican style that you're talking about, where they would go ham and then they'd be able to pull it back and play the matchup straight, but they would keep that ham in the back pocket, right?
Yeah, like, oh man, I got two examples for that too. Cause yeah, I played against Crossover one time and it was like the first time that I played him. And I knew he was like a very like fundamental, like smart, patient Shoto player. And the first thing he does is just like dash up, uppercut me. And I was like, what? Like, what is happening? And then like, yeah, he just like, he woke up with like 3 DPs in a row. And then like for the rest of the night, like he didn't do that, but he was just like, yeah, I just wanted to see like what you would do. And I wanted to see if you'd freak out after that. And I was like, yeah, because like Justin Wong said like the greatest advice in the history of fighting games years ago when Street Fighter 4 was out. And he was like, people always like complaining about command throws because they don't understand like the threat of command throw is way better than the actual command throw most of the time. So like I remember he like gave me a tip, and Rick Dog gave me the same tip like a year later. And he was like, all right, so if I have a command throw and I haven't played this guy before, I'm literally just going to like spam the hell out of command throw in every situation that I can get in the first round. And then I'm not going to use it the whole rest of the set. And like, I was at Evo, Street Fighter 5. I want to say it was like 2019, actually. Yeah, because I was supposed to be there for a strength and conditioning conference, and I totally didn't go. I totally just went to Evo instead. I mean, when I found out the same weekend, I was like, video games or work? Like, are we really? Like, fuck that. I'm not going to work. I'm going to pick video games. Right? So, like, Tim was super cool. He was working the event. And he was like, "Here, bro, here's my pass. Like, go play." And then that was the year that Dina let me play for her spot in Evo because she wasn't going to play.
Oh.
That was sweet. I got out of pools. It was great. Thanks again for that, Dina. That was a great time. I had a lot of fun with that. But yeah, I got in a situation where I was playing against a Karen player. And that was when you were playing Karen at the time. And the first round, I was like, I'm going to do what Justin Wong said. And I looked at Rick and I'm like, I'm going to do it. And Rick's like, oh, no, you're going to be an idiot. And I'm like, no, I got this. Trust me. And then like the first round, start off the first round, like double dash, command throw, like with buttons. You wake up, command throw, like just nonstop command throw. And I did actually win the first round. I don't know how, but didn't use it the whole rest of the set. And then it came down to the last round, last key knockdown. And like, I could feel Rick like behind me being like, whatever you do, do not command throw because he's going to jump. And I'm like, and I didn't command throw and I won. I caught him with the sickest frame trap ever. And I was just turned around to Rick and Rick was like, I won. And I turned around to Rick and Rick's like, God, thank God you didn't command throw right there. Like, fuck, I would have punched you in the face if you'd command throw. And I was like, I've grown since then. But yeah, no, like if you have a command throw and you have a DP, like, oh my God, that's so unfair. Like if you know how to just be scary with the command throw and like I said, like use it, terrify them and be like, it's not actually on the table. Like I'm taking it off the table, but it's the only thing you're going to think of.
I mean, that's kind of an abbreviated version of what, or not abbreviated, but a more extreme version of like what my match with Mena was like, where we like round one start of the first game, he ran up, dashed forward and did crouch fierce with Blanca on me. And then which is DIable, it's unsafe on block, it's extremely slow, it's his worst button according to a lot of Blanca players that I was talking to at the time. And then he never did it again. And the whole time I was looking to DI it and looking to, watch for a moment that he would dash up and hit a big ass button. And I was like, I had my hand set on DI the whole time, and then he would dash up and throw me instead because he would just catch me looking for something that he was never going to show me again. And I got my ass kicked that set. So that's pretty there's a lot of mental games here. Like I go the opposite direction where I'm like, if they're going to command throw me three times in round one, I'm still going to pretend that they don't have one just so that way I don't run into a situation like that. I don't want them to scare me out of my options. But that's when I get command thrown for the entire set. So who the fuck knows?
Yeah. Right. Because like I remember, and it's like the first time I played Mena, like after the first round, like I knew, I was like, yeah, this guy is definitely like there's a reason why he's world champion. Because when Latif was still staying with us, I remember one time, like I don't remember if it was at like a Ranbat, it was something at Haz's house, but like I asked Latif, I was like, why do you play Viper? Like, why do you play the craziest character like in the game, more or less, except for like Seth? Like, why? Why don't you just play like Sagat or something? And I guess he did play Sagat like in vanilla or whatever. But I was like, why don't you play like Guile or something? And he's like, Mike, I'm going to tell you the greatest truth in the history of all fighting games right now. The best players in the world go forward, and you can't stop them from going forward. They will just push you to the corner and you die. And that's exactly what happened every single round I played Mena. Like my goal was just to be like, I'm going to stop this man from just walking forward. And I couldn't at all. Like nothing I did could stop him from going forward. And he was just like, and that's it.
You're taking your hands,
that was every round
to the corner, basically. Yeah.
I didn't even get this. Like I didn't get this. It's just that, like more like.
Mike is making gestures in the camera right now with his hands, and he made one that looks like it was a shape of a dog, doing shadow puppets, right?
Oh, yeah. He beat me down bad, and as that was happening, I was like, Latif is right. Like the best players in the world go forward because like I always loved rooting for Dominion in top 8 for Guile because he was doing it for America. But I'd always sit there and be like, he can't win because he's not going to go forward.
Yeah. See that's actually like a perfect example, kind of like of what I'm working on right now, because like John talked about that in terms of like switching up this, or you talked about that in terms of switching up the style, right? Being reactionary, kind of staying back, and then going ham. And that's kind of how my journey's been right now. Is like I have my offense, and like my going forward was probably my biggest weakness. And like I've got the reactionary stuff down, the anti-airs, I can deal with that kind of stuff, but it's not enough. I don't get by certain players, but I've got to know when to kind of turn it on and be like, okay, now I'm going to dictate the pace and I'm going to do some things, and now we're going to see what you're going to do against this. Whereas, because against much better players, like I can only anti-air them so many times. Eventually, they're going to find their way in, right? And then I got to deal with their shit. So I'm like, I've got to start. The more I've developed my offense and my Oki and worked on that, like I've seen more success now because of that.
Yeah, you gotta make it hurt.
You do, yeah. And I mean, like in Street Fighter 6, like I mean, kind of like how Guile, like in Street Fighter 5, Guile could go forward, and I was like, this is stupid. Guile's not supposed to be able to go forward. Like this is broken. Like this is dumb. Oh, bro, he had like the second fastest walk speed going forward in 5, and I was like,
yep.
Why? Like, why did you give him like Vega level walk speed? He's Guile. Like,
and then you get the stand fierce, right? The stand fierce crush counter. Boom.
Yep. And then that knocks you back. You roll backwards, and he pushes you into the corner, and then boom loops you in the corner, right?
Yep.
That's insane.
What was it? The V trigger too? Yeah, where he's just like, I just put an endless trail of booms and go forward. Like, no, bro, not fair. Like,
he still has that. It's worse because now you can drive rush at you in 6. So
I was gonna say
ridiculous.
Like Dalsum's not necessarily like walking at you, but like he can go forward and he can be a threat going forward. So like, that makes sense to me, Benny. Because the times when you would just like put me in the mix with stuff, I'd be like, why is Sim on offense? It's like, no, like no. And it was crushing offense. It was good. So I think that makes sense. Because again, too, if you run into a matchup like John and DJ, right? Like you might just not have certain options in that matchup to negate like an advantage that they have. And if you don't have a good counter for it, then the best counter is to not let them ever be in that situation because you're on offense.
Yeah.
Like
that makes sense.
It's like Benny, you'll appreciate this. John is going to go over your head, right? But like when Tom Brady was in the league, same thing for Patrick Mahomes, right? You can't stop them consistently on offense. Like you just can't. It doesn't matter what their team is. It doesn't matter like what people say. When it's clutch time, you can't stop them. So the only thing you can do is not let them be on offense. You just run the ball, run out the clock, get a couple first downs, and just kill the clock. Which like, I mean, this is a whole different can of worms, but like when everyone was telling me last year, like, oh, running backs you don't need running backs. Like you pay them dirt money, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, bullshit, dude. You get to the playoffs, you need a running back so you can run out the clock so you can beat Patrick Mahomes. Duh.
Yeah, because that's often the talk. Like, it's almost the same concept too, because like you're just trying to limit their opportunities, right? It's so in football, it's run the ball, kill the clock, and not let him on the field. So to me, that's like if I dictate my offense and I'm the one on offense, guess what? He can't play offense until he takes his turn back.
I also think about it. The analogy I can think of is the life lead. Like I've actually had some good luck against DJ lately, where I'm like, I will get the life lead and then make him come to me, and then from there, I dictate the pace of the match because he has to get in on me, and the fact that he can out fireball me doesn't actually matter because he's not gonna get past that life lead, and then I have to commit to a 99-second match, so that sucks, but. It's worked pretty well. It works really well against Blanca too.
See, there's almost that same parallel when it comes to football too, because there's some coaches that will get in their own heads and say, you know what, I don't want to run the ball. I want to do what I want to do, And then what happens? They end up losing
They
because they're getting
lose.
away from the strategy that's effective, which is the keep away, which is the don't give him an opportunity to get the ball back.
That's right. That's
Yep.
when you run
No.
face first into Honda, right? Like, no, I'm serious. Honda gets the life leading turtles, and then you got to run in and eat every headbutt along the way. There we go. I triggered
Nico,
Mike
I hope you're watching right now, Nico, because God, that was so much emotional trauma for so many years. If Honda didn't exist, I would have won so many tournaments. Like, instead I won 0.
Oh man. But, I had a question I wanted to pose to you as well before, just while we had you on the show, because you are a coach, and so in our Discord right now, there's a lot of conversation about like what it means to practice and how to get better at something, and I'm of the mindset that it'll vary depending on the person, and people learn different ways. I'm in this situation right now where like I have a set combo that I get off of a jab. Where I do forward strong DRC, which the route is not that really relevant, but I'm trying to do a meterless conversion instead lately. But I find that when I'm really focusing on it, I can pull it off and I can change how my combos work, and I can do the thing that I'm practicing. But then when I'm in like the heat of the moment and I'm frantic, or like I really want to win, like in a ranked match or something, I really want to beat this guy, I end up defaulting back to the old combo that I practice, that I know by default. And so I'm trying to understand, like, it feels like a layers thing for me, where it's like, when I'm working really hard and trying to understand it really hard, I'm gonna do my best to make sure that I do that combo. But like when the mental space isn't there, I instead just fall apart and end up defaulting to something. So is there like a way you can practice around that, or like a strategy that you do to kind of avoid that?
Yeah, I'll literally give you all the answers to everything you just said right now. So,
sick.
So first of all, you said that people learn in different ways, right? So there's 3 main types of learning, right? You've got visual learners who learn by seeing. They can see it, and then all of a sudden they can replicate it, right? Actually, let's start with like the tiers, right? So the lowest tier learning, in my opinion, is audio learning. So you learn by hearing, right? So the whole goal of being able to learn something is you have to be able to do it yourself, right? So the goal that you want is you want to be able to visualize the task and know exactly what that would feel like to do it perfectly. Because then if you can know that what that feels like, you can replicate it, right? So if you're an audio learner and you learn by listening, you don't get as much visual and tactile stimulus to learn, right? So above that, then you would have the visual learner. Like, I can see it. I know what that would feel like to do what I just saw. Now I replicate it, right? And then you have kinesthetic learners, when those are learners that learn by feel. So like you can explain it to them, you can show it to them, but they need to feel what that is that you're doing, right? So in my opinion, based on my experience as a coach, most athletes are tactile. They're kinesthetic learners. So they learn by doing the thing, right? So like they're going to learn just by doing it, even if they're doing it wrong, because they're going to learn first what it feels like to do it wrong, as long as you can give them the stimulus of what it feels like to do it right. Then they have their own internal feedback loop to be able to be like, oh, right, that was wrong because I felt it being wrong, if that makes sense. So
that makes perfect sense. Because like I was gonna say, like I've seen videos where like like the street basketball players will be like, hey, I'm gonna show you how to do this move, and like the pros, they don't do some of those like kind of outlandish moves, right? Because they're pros, right? It's not legal in their arena of professionalism. But then like you see them, they're like, well, this is what you got to do, and like you'll see them kind of like mimic the movements, and then they'll get little corrections here and there, and then like within 10 reps, they're like, yeah, I got it. And like they're doing it like they've been doing it their whole lives.
Yeah. So when you're getting into the sequencing of like applied like skill acquisition, right? Because in my opinion, we've talked about this before, like esports athletes are athletes, because like when you're doing your combos, right? That's a feel. Like if I turn the sound off on your system and you can't do your combo, you don't know the combo. Like if you can't do that combo, or at least most of it, without looking off screen, then you don't know the combo. It's not actually like registered in as a motor control program. So the first thing that I would say is like when you're trying to learn a skill, you need to do it in 3 segments. So one is called closed chain learning, right? So we use this in athletics. For example, if I'm like going to teach someone just how to jump, right? How to like crouch down and jump, right? The opening part of that is a squat. So like I teach someone how to squat first. So if they know how to squat, then basically all they have to do is the squat, but then go off the ground, right? So if you have your combo, right, just practicing the combo in training mode or whatever it is, right, being able to sequence it perfectly like 10 times in a row in training mode, that is your close chain, right? So you already know what to expect. There's not going to be any like random craziness. Like it's just a dummy, nothing stopping you from doing your buttons exactly as it should be done, right? So you master that first. Like try to do that combo 10 times in a row without screwing it up once. So if you can do that, then you would move to what's called open chain. So open chain in athletics just means that like the limb is no longer on the ground. So like if I was doing a push-up and I just go up and down, that's closed chain because my hands never leave the ground. But if I go down and then I push up, my hands come off the ground, then that's now open chain because I no longer have that stabilization with the ground. My brain doesn't have the feeling of the stability of the ground anymore. So now I'm basically in a chaotic state. So if you're talking about like combos,
okay. Yeah.
The next piece to doing that is being able to replicate that combo like in a somewhat more like realistic situation. So like closed chain would be like doing it against the dummy. Then open chain would be like, okay, like now it's a live dummy. And now I'm going to try to land this specific scenario. Like maybe it's a jump in and then you do the combo, right? But you are looking to set up the opportunity, whatever it is, right? Whether it's like dash up and do it or jump, whatever. You're trying to take the chaoticness and wait for the moment where you can force your play.
So like recording the dummy to do a certain sequence and then using like in my case mine's a counter hit combo, so I could be like, okay, I'm gonna make the dummy jump at me and I'm gonna punish counter their landing frames, and then that'll be my that's my close or open chain rather. Okay, I get you.
Right. So you could set it up just so that like I knock the dummy
drills
down. And, right. Yeah. You can make it like as a drill, right? But the thing with the drill is like even if you put it as like randomized wake up or like randomized counter hit, right? Like you're still looking for the exact situation. You know when it's going to happen. It's just whether or not it's going to happen, right?
You don't have all that other mental space trying to play against your opponent because you're still in this, this hyperbolic time chamber in training mode, right? So,
right. So if you can do that, like if you can do the combo, like you can do it against a live dummy and you're like, cool, sweet, I get you to dash, a neutral jump, whatever, or like whatever, right? So you can set it up in a match. The next piece is to be able to do it with randomization. So like absolute chaos, right? So at that point, what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to set up a situation where you're not sure whether or not you're going to get that opportunity for that counter hit. So you could randomize the counter hit, but right when that situation's happening, you need someone like Jess to be right next to you and be like, hey, John, what's the capital of Minnesota? And then you need to turn to her and be like, it's St. Paul, and then nail the combo. So you have to add in randomness, because what that shows you is if you can do it most of the time with complete randomness involved, you have mastered the actual motor function. Like your brain doesn't need to have that visual representation that it happened. It just knows. And it does.
So like I could put like a YouTube video or a podcast on in the background while doing my drills essentially. And then that would split my brain and emulate a match.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to add chaos to it, and you have to allow your brain to be partitioned to the distraction so that you are only using basically half of your focus on it. Because it sounds like to me that you can do the counter hit combo, right? You can set up the counter hit combo, but then when it comes to like super clutch time, when you're not thinking about that and it happens, you're like, oh shit, I can't capitalize. So the other thing you could do, and this is going to sound kind of silly, but I've actually done this with athletes because the soldiers has to be able to do something similar, right? Is like another thing that you could do is like if you have a partner that's willing to let you do this, like I would be totally willing to do this, but like round starts, right? As soon as the round starts, like go do something for like 20 seconds that's going to jack your heart rate like way up. Like start doing like jump squats or burpees or push-ups, something that's going to make you like extremely fatigued, and then immediately go into the match and play it. Because now you're not in a controlled state. You're not thinking clearly. You don't have total control of your motor programs. You're basically forcing your brain to play in an uncomfortable position, right?
So you're not talking in an analogy. You're talking about actually going and physically tiring yourself out, so that way you are distracted by how tired your body feels while playing the game.
Yeah, exactly. You now have physical fatigue that is taking away your ability to play at 100%. Because if you think about like evolution, gaining a skill, learning a new thing, getting better at something, you don't do that when you're in a comfortable situation. You have to be in an uncomfortable situation to be able to grow. If you're always in a comfort, you're not going to grow. I'm sure, David Goggins. There you go. I summarized it in 2 words. David Goggins. Which if you don't know David Goggins, now you have new homework because he's awesome.
Holy shit, though! Wow.
But yeah, okay. like for the soldiers, like we'll do training where like, they're going to do a workout, right? But one of the things of their job is they have to be able to like sprint to a location. And then if that location is a building, they have to then breach the building. So they have to sprint and tire themselves out to a state where they're fatigued and, they're in a combat situation, life and death. And then they have to be able to drop their heart rate, center themselves, control their breathing, and then breach that door because they don't know what's on the other side that's about to shoot them, right? It could be a guy on the right, it could be a guy down the hall, it could be a guy on the left, it could be a guy right around the door. Like they have to be able to react and think clearly. So basically what it sounds like is you have to add more chaos to your practice when you practice it, because if the thing that's getting you is a high tense situation in a match, you may not be able to always replicate that unless you can replicate that setting. And that's hard to do, right? So then you have to be able to replicate your physiological response to that setting.
Holy shit. I didn't even think about it like that. I tend to approach it from like a musical standpoint, and I'm like, okay, so all I gotta do is play my piano scales right before I go to bed, and I'll internalize it and turn it into muscle memory and stuff. But again, that completely discounts. I don't get to play my scales in front of a stage on everybody, in front of thousands of people or anything. So I never am truly in duress when I'm practicing my musical instrument. This is a very I'm gonna try this shit. I'll report back next time we have you on. That's really fascinating.
And at the start too, like it's not gonna go well. Like you're right off the rip. Like when you do that, like you shouldn't find success immediately. So if you are, then like that, you're gonna have to try something else. So like I said, like doing the fatigue stuff, and then go play a match
too, right?
Or like literally while you're playing. Like tell Jess, be like, Jess, I want you to just annoy me about like all the girl shit. Just like yap in my ear the whole time. And talk to Jess while you do that. Like try to actually like have that conversation, but play. Like you have to be able to create chaos in that situation. And it's not easy, right? Like I said, like you have to be able to basically center yourself, and in that moment just react. So like for example, like, and I remember we talked about this on the last one, right? But again, like when I knew I was going to play infiltration, I did my scouting and I was like, cool, my closed chain thing is I can't get swept. Like no matter what, if I don't get swept, I could probably beat this guy. That was my mindset. Like if I get swept, I lose immediately because I'm just going to get vortex. And that happened in like almost every round. Actually, no, every round that I lost. So like I was literally just sitting there in training mode, and I'd be like, cool, like Akuma in place, sweep. And I would just be like, cool, I feel the range, stand medium push with punish, right? And obviously at that point I could do that in my sleep. So I'm like, cool. Now I'll have him move around, sweep at random times. So now I have to like play the range and then also react, but I still know he's going to sweep. And then I would change that up and be like, okay, now I'm going to have him walk around and switch between like low forward and sweep. And if he presses low forward, even though technically I can do the same punish, I was trying to train my brain like, no, like do not react to the low forward, react to the sweep. And
wow,
I did that for like 4 hours in that hotel room. And I think it was Isaac that was staying with me at the time. He was like going to play players, and he's like, yo, we're going to go play. Like, you going to play? I was like, no, bro, I'm trying to slay a god right now. Like, I don't know what you're doing tomorrow, but like tomorrow I'm going to beat this guy on stream. Like, and I didn't beat him, but I did hit him with the whiff sweep. I set his ass up, Like,
yeah,
wiggled, walked back, knew he was going to sweep. And before he even came out, I was like, stand medium push, FADC Ultra. And that ended that got me my one match win. I was like, I just did that in 24 hours. I programmed my brain to do that, and I did it. And like on stream, I freaked out because I was like, you guys don't understand. Like, I just visualized that happening 24 hours ago.
That's where you mucked the camera and you did the Bushin thing too, and they did a close up on you and everything.
Bro, like,
so I didn't know it was 24 hours in the making there. That's fascinating. Okay.
Well, yeah, because I mean, it's the best player in the world. Like, realistically, you're probably not going to be the best player in the world, so you have to have a strategy for it. And like, that's why, like, if you watch that match, like, normally when I play against anyone, particularly Akuma players, like, as a guy, I would anti-air everyone. Like, no one jumped at me. I don't think I anti-aired him once because I was so hyper-focused on the sweep. I was like, whatever, he can jump at me, do whatever, he'll throw me, sure, cool. I mean, that's still a vortex, but like, you know, at least I'm not getting swept, right? Because at that point, within like the time that I had to prep, I was like, I can't prep for like multiple things, man. I got to pick one. So I chose the sweep because I figured, I was like, well, if I at least do my job, he's probably going to have less chances to throw me than he will to sweep me. But if he sweeps me because I like to play footsies, then I'm fucked. So
yeah,
like
I'll have to take into account. Okay.
No, I was just gonna say that'd be my consideration. Like, test yourself on your proficiency. Like, if you do that combo just in a controlled state in training mode and it's like 5 to 6 out of 10, then you don't have the basic proficiency in just executing it. Once you get that down and you can do it, like, yep, night and day, like, I know I can just walk up and do this, then start adding more chaos to it. Like, force yourself to have to react. And then once you have the ability, like, oh, like, I pressed the button, did it counter hit? No. Okay, I don't do the follow-up. Did it counter hit? Sweet. Yeah, I optimize, right? Once you can do that, then you have to be able to react to that with chaos.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah, so I think my problem is like I'm kind of all over the place because, like, one, I need to get the kind of like the rote memorization and that stuff down, right? The 10 reps in a row. Like, that's something that one of my friends back in Alaska said too. Like, he's like the Tekken guy up there, right? And his when it came to like he explaining learning like combos and punishes and stuff like that, his thing was always just like, do it until you can do it 10 times in a row on both sides. Then once you do that, then then you can start working, incorporating that into your game, because at that point, like, you can do it. Now it's like you have to adjust the environment, and like you said, like then that's when you go against, play against either the random CPU, or for me that's like going to the hub matches, right? Like, I haven't been playing ranked a lot. Like, it's not that I don't necessarily want to build up my rank. It's more like right now I'm working on reps and getting that stuff down. So it's like, to me, that's the randomness from the opponent, right? Because like, like you said, like, I can hit this jab combo just fine against a dummy, but like, I need to be able to do it when the opportunity presents itself. And then it's funny you talk about the chaos thing, because like that kind of just happens randomly in my house sometimes. Like, I'll be playing and then somebody opens the door and I'm just like, shit. And I'm just like, they know that I'm playing, so they kind of like, be quiet until they see a break. But at the same time, like, that's a distraction. And like, I got to be able to still, do much. Occasionally there's going to be those opportunities, like you said, where I'm just going to fuck up and I'm like, damn it, like, why did you distract me? But at the same time, like, I got to be able to perform at that time as well.
Or like when someone's throwing axes behind you or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, literally that, because like,
that's a good example, John, because like I didn't even hear that at Casa Grande. Like, that's completely out of my mind when I'm playing. Like, we didn't have headsets or anything, and like I don't, like, when I'm playing, like, I don't hear that at all. I hear it when I was like commentating. Like, it caught me off guard when I was commentating, and then like something happened, like somebody got knocked down, and then I heard the fucking womb in the back, and I was just like, oh shit, like, what happened? Did somebody like flip a table? But when I'm playing, like, that didn't bother me at all.
Just Mike, to give you some context, the most recent tournament that was held at a gaming lounge / axe throwing store, where people would like book rooms to throw axes at walls. So you just hear people slamming it during tournaments. Yeah.
No, I dig it, because like, I encountered that too, Benny, and I would actually say, like, as part of the randomness, like, I would suggest you guys, like, every now and then, like, if you are practicing like in training mode, right, in that closed chain environment, turn off the sound every now and then. Like
I was thinking about doing
because
that too because like
play with music.
I don't really rely on the sound, but I think like I need
don't
to
even
start playing in
play
silence.
music, like absolute
Yeah,
silence. Yeah.
yeah,
Absolute silence, because then all you have is just the sound and the feeling of the
yeah,
buttons.
yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
So like once you have that, then it forces you, like you have nothing else to focus on but your timing, your rhythm. Because like what was I gonna say? Yeah, like when I would play a lot, like if people were like being rowdy around me, like didn't mind, because I'm like, look, like if I'm gonna go play in a tournament, like it's gonna be crazy, right? Unless you
Yeah.
play on stage, and even then, everyone's looking at you. So like you have to be ready to just play like in any environment.
Yep.
Like that's what gets me so mad, Benny, about like pro tennis and pro golf. Like in my honest opinion, as a coach, those guys are not professionals, because
Wow.
whenever they have to do their task,
Yeah.
whenever they have to do their task, it's like
Quiet.
quiet. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No,
Yeah.
but concentration is not something that you get at the professional level. Like professional means
Yeah,
no matter what,
Yeah, I
you
think
do
about
it.
that in golf. I never thought
Look
about
at
that in tennis, but like tennis, it's always just like at the serve, it's quiet, right? Everybody's quiet until
yeah,
like even the back and forth, it's like completely quiet unless there's like a gasp until the point's scored. Then it's just like everybody's clapping, right? The rest of the
yeah.
time, it's pretty quiet.
But even then, though, like
But
I
look at
know
that.
for a fact with tennis that people, they grunt for their own timing when they hit the ball. They go
Yeah, it is.
You hear that sometimes. So maybe that like the meta of tennis has developed around the grunting because they have that silence given to
I don't know
them, as you guys
like
stated, right?
because people do that when they box or like martial arts too. Like they'll kick. Like I did taekwondo for
Ki.
years, and like when
Yeah.
people kick, they'll let out that same thing. Even boxers, like I've seen people box and like they're constantly like making noise like when they hit.
Fair.
Yeah,
Okay.
because like, yeah, no, that's what always got me annoyed about it. Because I'm like, okay, so cool, golfer, you have mastered closed chain and open chain, but you cannot do it with randomization. That means you're not a pro. You're not. You're just
Can you
not.
imagine that at
Like,
the Super Bowl? Like, shh, guys, we
like
gotta run our offense.
right, like look at football, right? Like you look at football, it gets so loud in there that they can't even hear themselves talking, so they have to go like silent count, and they have to just
Silent count,
go
yep.
off of signals.
Is that the
Or,
chaos
like,
from the
in
Super Bowl? Is it
basketball.
whether or not Taylor Swift was in the audience and distracting and causing chaos for everybody? There we go.
I would say yes and no, because like once you're on the field, like you're not going to notice anything outside of the field, like at that
Yeah.
point. But
I
if
mean,
she had
like
been
I
on the
said,
field, yeah,
yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Like once I was in the middle of that Casa Grande tournament and I was playing, like all the outside noise, like it's not even there for me. I'm just in
yeah.
the moment kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah, like because I learned something in a motor control class like years ago, right? And this just applies to people in general because you see it happen all the time, right? And I learned that you cannot control the input stimulus, right? So like life is chaotic, right? You're going to get an input and you can't control that, but you absolutely can control your output, which is your reaction to the stimulus. So if you're one of those people, particularly if you play fighting games and you're one of those people that's like, oh, you messed me up. No, you messed yourself up, son, because you have crappy emotional control. Get good. Like learn to control yourself. Like if you can't do it in a wind tunnel, then you can't do it.
Yeah.
Man. Like
the hecklers.
I'm not saying I
right?
could.
Like the
Right.
Tucson
Like I'm not saying
heckling.
I could. But
The
like,
birds
yeah,
calling.
I never yelled at any of the Tucson guys for heckling because I'm like, that's what you're there to do, bro. Like you are
Exactly, yeah.
there to try to get me to lose. Like if you're
Yep.
not heckling, then you're not trying to get me to lose. Like no, man. Like I mean, obviously there's a line there, right?
You shouldn't
Like,
touch
yeah.
the guy, right? Yeah.
right. Like, you shouldn't touch the guy. Yeah, exactly. Like, but that's because you can physically alter his ability to move, right? So if you're just yelling at someone, like as long as you can't physically feel their breath,
Yeah.
if they're right there and they're yelling at you and you can't handle it, guess what? You got something to work on. That's your fault.
Yeah, see, I love that input output thing because that's great because like it kind of reminds me of this time like when I was at Game On Expo doing the Tetris thing for the first time, right? And they set up a stream and they were like, anybody that wants to play and be on the stream, sit here, right? And it was it was one of the other stations like people would line up and like once you topped out or whatever, you had to go to the next station and people would be like, oh no, I don't want to play on that one, and I'm like, why? It's like, well, I don't want to be on the stream. I'm going to play bad, and I was like, well, if you make it to the point to where you qualify, you're gonna have to be on the stream anyway. So why not put
Right.
yourself in that situation right now, and
Right.
whatever, right?
which tells you like if your goal is to win, you would have considered that. If your goal is not to win, then you
If you're
might
just
not have
there, then
considered that.
yeah. For me, I was
Right.
like, I mean, obviously I'd had years of experience playing in tournaments and being in those kind of situations. So to me, it was just like, hey, I'm gonna go on stream, and if I'm gonna suck ass, I'm gonna suck ass. But you know what? If I want to get to where I want to get, like, I need to be able to do it in front of whoever's watching.
Yeah, like that match against Infiltration that I played at SCR. Originally, it wasn't going to be on stream because the stream match was taking too long, and like the tournament organizer guy was like, "All right, like stream's taking forever. Like we're gonna put you guys over there," and I was like, "Absolutely not. Like no, I'm playing this man on stream. Like no, like you will DQ me. I will not play him off stream. Like not doing it. Like, I'm playing. I prep for this. Like I'm gonna beat him on stream so that everyone can be like, yep." He did the thing. There it is. Immortalized forever, even though now it's gone. But yeah, no, I think that's a good point, Benny. Like 100%.
All right, coach. So I'm gonna run my game plan by you here based on what you taught me on this episode today to learn my counter hit combo. So first I'm gonna just do it on the dummy. Maybe do like a random counter hit or something, call that close chain. Oh, and then I'm going to do it where the dummy's going to be jumping at me, and then I'm going to be walking under them and counter hitting them that way and confirming it based off that. So it'll be random, and then the bot will just continually switch between those options, and I'll have to confirm that visually. That's the open chain. From there, I'm going to split my brain and either put a podcast on or have Jess talk to me or something and do that same exercise with the dummy, with the bot jumping around. And then I'm going to add some chaos to it, and I'm going to like turn the sound off. I'm going to maybe I'll bring Jess in on the chaos part. I think that'd be like like make sure she's wide open playing Helldivers in the other room. And I can hear just random yells about Titans or Bile Titans or whatever they are. And call that the true chaos.
I would say the one context for that piece when you're training like that is once you get to the chaotic piece, don't get to the chaotic training piece and then just stay there. Make sure that you go back, because once you get the chaotic piece, right, it's essentially going to throw turmoil into your body's natural plan for that, whatever that skill is, that combo, right? It's used to doing it a certain way. You throw some chaos in there and it's like, oh shit. So then you have to bring it back to the closed and then the open to make sure that you refortify it. But then every time you go through that process, the chaotic piece should get a little bit better, because now you're keeping the core skill that you have, but you're trying to teach your brain like, hey, we have to be able to do this here, not just here and here.
I remember the other end of chaos that I was going to add to it is I was going to go run down the stairs, run up the stairs. And then make sure I'm like my heart's beating, and then I'm like tired out or like asking myself why the hell I ate all those hot dogs from that afternoon.
And then also, John.
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
No, and then I'll do my combos and hope that chaos, that I prevail throughout that chaos, but then be willing to slide back down the chain as needed.
When if you do the physical thing where you fatigue yourself, because remember, you want your brain being applied to the distraction, right? So if you use the physical piece while you're playing and you're tired, focus on using your breathing to drop your heart rate back down to controlled, like, okay, I'm not tired anymore. Because that's the point. Shit.
Okay.
When you get to the tournament and you're in that last round, no matter what, I guarantee you, if I throw a heart rate monitor on you in that moment, you're gonna be like, because you're on the big stage, you're playing against a really good opponent. Like your tournament line is literally right there. It's that match, and everyone can see you whether you fail or succeed. So like, no matter what, you're gonna have the heart rate thing. So being able to have that skill of being like, oh, I'm in the tournament now, I recognize my heart rate's up because I've been doing that and I know what that feels like.
Got it. So it's not about preventing the nerves from happening, but it's more about mitigating them after they happen, and then training your body to be able to minimize that response altogether.
Exactly. You recognize what's happening, like, oh, I'm freaking out because I'm a human being in a stressful situation. I know what to do because I prepped for it, and now I achieve the result that I want.
Sick. Because I get nervous when I play in high stakes environments. I don't know about you, Benny, but I could definitely use practice on that front, and I couldn't find a way to simulate that without having to play in more tournaments. So this is a good way to actually do that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, because like
I had a moment like that actually recently. I don't know if it was the Casa Grande tournament or if it was that free game on tournament that I did that I ended up winning. But I
Mhm.
I have an Apple Watch, and like I remember looking at it, and it was like, oh, your heart rate's gone up, and I was just like, oh, that's from when I was playing, right? That was the exact reason why.
yep. Yeah, because like to your point, John, like when I got into fighting games in '09, right after playing 17 years of competitive sports, like when I would get to tournament matches and I would sit there, like based on what we were saying, right? I was used to playing in games where like parents are yelling at me, other players are yelling at me, like people in
Yeah.
the stands are just like looking at anything to make fun of you, right? So like I was used to that. And then I would look and be like, oh, I'm playing against this nerd that's like 5'3", 120. Like he can't do shit to me. I'm about to destroy him. And like that whole stress piece did not like even compute to me until I got to the point where it was like, okay, yeah, you're like top 3 last round. Like you gotta hit this or you're gonna lose. Then that's when I would feel the nerves. Like those situations I would feel it. But like just a standard like tournament match, I'd be like, no, I'm good. Like I've been in way worse than this. Like
Man, I could probably talk to you for hours about sports psychology and how that applies to fighting games, and maybe we'll do that next time when we have you on.
it does.
This is super
Esports is a
sick, man.
sport. It's a
Yeah.
sport. Like it is. It's got all the same things. Like, and it all comes down to being able to execute under extreme pressure, regardless of what that pressure looks like. But either way, like Benny said, you're gonna have that physiological response of getting your heart rate up and you're gonna get nervous. So if you have the ability to recognize that and then in the moment drop your heart rate with your breathing, then that's a massive advantage.
So we have your opinion on whether or not esports are a sport. We have your opinion on the Pacific Northwest. Are there any other big topics or shout outs you want to make on the way out here? We close out the show here.
Yeah, I want to give a big shout out actually to guacamole. Guacamole is amazing. One of the best condiments ever made. It's a superfood and it looks cool. So I mean, yeah, like you pretty much have to be an idiot not to like guacamole. But yeah, other than that, no.
Consider me an idiot then.
Cool.
Like I said, Benny, we're allowed to be wrong because you may not like guacamole, but you can land a pretty sweet plane. And not many people can do that.
Oh yeah, you could apply all that to flying on an airplane too. Huh? I don't think about it like
you put me in that spot, bro. That plane is crashing. We're all dying. Like,
sorry, I got distracted. Remember, I was looking for my work phone earlier, and then the alarm goes off at 9, and it's been
adding the chaos, dude. There's the chaos right there. Set your work phone alarm to go off while you're doing your combos. There it is.
I was like, we're in the middle of talking, and I heard it going off, and I was like, wait, what's that sound? And I was like, oh, that's my work phone. I was like, damn it.
And the fact that we can continue our podcast even, but that's hella open chain. That is off the open chain. No, not too much. All right.
No, it's good. You're taking the terms and applying them.
But yeah, next time we have you on, I'll let you know how my training regimen goes there. I'm actually going to do that right. I'm probably going to do that while I edit this episode. There's my chaos. So
remember, yeah, you can do it. You can do it too if you don't have like an outside thing in the moment to distract you. Like I said, try doing it with your eyes closed. Try doing it without the sound. Try doing it like sideways. Just anything that's not the regular way you're going to do it.
Cool. Well, this has been the Absolute Guard Podcast, episode 81 with John, Benny, and Mike. You can find us on Twitch at twitch.tv/Spiral Series, YouTube at youtube.com/Spiral Series, and an Apple Podcast and Spotify under Absolute Guard. Thanks, guys, and have a good night.
Have a good night, John. See you guys.